I'm Jill Hummert, and today we are going to talk about tackling something that hits us all at some point. Dun dun dun. Middle age. Welcome back to Smarter Wealth. This is the podcast where we talk about real life. We talk about real change and how to navigate it all without losing our minds. Welcome, Cari.
Hi.
So excited to talk to you today.
I'm excited to be here. I think mostly.
Well,
kinda.
you know, we might get real and talk about things that some people don't always talk about, and that's exciting and scary a little bit, right?
Yeah. Yes, I'm bringing out all my dirty laundry to talk about, how I feel about getting old and stuff. Yeah.
I feel like that's refreshing because really sometimes we need the safe space to be able to talk about that.
I am super thankful for my friends who allow, because I do have some friends who are also as old as I am but don't want to face it. And so it's really difficult for us to have that conversation, because I am 50 and beautiful. It's my best decade. And they are like, please don't say those words out loud. So I think it's great that we're having this conversation.
Yes. Well, I am thrilled to be having it with you because you always bring such a lighthearted sense to just about any conversation we've ever had. And I appreciate having real conversation as well as we said, just being able to laugh about some of the
Right.
things that we can't change,
Right.
whether we want to or not. Yeah, it's slapping us in the face.
Right.
Life goes on.
It does go on, whether you can keep up with it or not, right?
Yes.
I am glad to be here for sure.
So, Cari, talk to me about this stage and age, and was there a pivotal moment when you found middle age is actually here?
Oh, it's funny because my husband and I just had this conversation this weekend, because he turned 55 this weekend.
I won't tell anybody.
And he said, we were out on a hiking trail, and he's like, I think this is the first birthday where I actually feel kind of old. And that was for him. For me, it was this year when I turned 50. I was like, oh, half a century. That's a whole thing. And there have been moments along the way, when I went to the eye doctor and he said, oh, you need bifocals now, or when I started talking to my doctor about all of the body changes, and he's like, yeah, well, you're an old lady now, that's what happens. I think there have been certain moments where I really felt it, but more than anything, I feel like this year being probably last year, 2024, was the year that I started to really embrace that my kids are out of the house. I'm an empty nester now. There were a lot of uniforms that I put on in my life that to show up the way people expected me to show up. And, there were a lot of things that happened last year that kind of put me in a place of I don't really care about that anymore. I don't give any more craps. I have none to give.
Zero.
That was a super freeing moment for me, and I really enjoyed being able to embrace that. And I think that was a pivotal part of me entering into middle age and saying, this is me. I'm Cari Kaufman, and if you don't like Cari Kaufman, cool, but I don't got to hang out with you.
Yeah.
And I think that was a really pivotal moment for me, stepping into it and going, I'm actually okay with myself, maybe for the first time in my entire life.
What a beautiful statement. Actually okay with yourself for the first time in your life.
Yeah.
At least you can say that today. I think the scary thing is that we should have been able to say that at every stage, right? I think I would agree with that. One thing that I can remember my grandmother saying in the past is, the older you get, the less you care.
Right.
You don't care what people think anymore. And as a teenager and as a young 20-something, my God, do we not just care what everybody thinks? It's like handcuffs. I mean, it's prison.
Yeah.
And you've raised a daughter,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, having a teenage daughter, trying to express that uniqueness is good. Be yourself. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay. We shouldn't have to be 40s and 50s and 60s to finally like take off the cloak and say, hey,
This is who
this
I
is me.
am.
Yeah.
Check it out. Yeah, and I do think that there is a part of that like kind of came with motherhood. I don't know if someone put it on me. Like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure someone put the cloak of motherhood on me, or I was just like, "Oh, look, here's the cloak. I'm putting it on." I'm not really sure how that happened. What I do know is that definitely for the time period that I was raising kids, I was fully masked. Like I was the
Mm-hmm.
homeroom mom who brought all the cookies and did all of the things, and you know, and I really didn't bring much of myself to the table, and I have a lot of regret
Yeah.
about that for sure. But I do think that there's something around that people, um women specifically, like we show up the way we are supposed to show up in
Yeah.
those times of our lives, and yeah, it wreaks havoc.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for the first time I've had the time and space to like step back and go, what do I like?
Yeah.
Like what do I like to eat for breakfast? My kids love scrambled eggs. Turns out this is thank you therapy. I found out that I don't like scrambled eggs at all.
After years of making
After
them for everybody
decades
else.
of making them, I was like, oh, so this is why I don't enjoy. All my family loves breakfast. They're like, let's go to IHOP. We'll eat the breakfast. I have always been like,
Yeah.
I don't want to, don't like breakfast. Yeah, I just don't like scrambled eggs, turns out.
So, what is your favorite breakfast, Cari Kaufman?
Well, now that I'm all gluten free, because we can get into like the digestive issues that happen in middle
Yeah, isn't that the
age.
truth?
But now that I'm gluten free, there is a place in Northwest Arkansas that serves all breakfast items, biscuits, pancakes, French
Mm.
toast, gluten free.
Oh.
And they have these lemon blueberry pancakes that are like
Mm. I love
kind
that.
of to die for. A
I love
lot to die
anything
for.
lemon.
Right?
Yes.
Yes.
Lemon
So
poppy seed, lemon blueberry, lemon.
pop some lemon in it and it's good to go. I am with
Always.
you.
Yes.
Especially if it has sugar alongside the lemon, a little sour,
Yes.
a little sweet. I like it.
I mean, who doesn't like a little sugar along with just about everything that,
Right.
right? Yes. So going back to something you said, really like whether you're a room mom or not, but you're doing all of these things that you you feel like are expected of you or that you have to do. Do you think that more times than not, it's really our own pressure that we're putting on ourselves that we probably could have been more of ourselves during
Mm.
that time, but we were afraid?
Yeah, I do. I think, gosh, that's such a good question. Um, yes, I think in a lot of ways we pick up the mantle and we're not really forced to, although we might be expected to, but we're not forced to,
Yeah.
right? I think we only know what we know in the time that we're there, right? So when we're 20, we only know that we're supposed to show up as the young ingenue 20-year-old something,
Mhm.
right? When we're 30, and I'm just saying what I went through, when I was 30, I showed up as mom because that's what I was. I had my first kid when I was 29. So like I changed
Embraced that.
and became the
Yes.
mother. And not no shade to that. There are definitely, it's not that I hated my raising child rearing years.
Yeah.
Like I didn't hate that, but ultimately I would often, as a matter of habit, subjugate my own desires, needs,
Mhm.
wants for my children to make sure that they had what they needed or
Sure.
I thought they needed. Um, so yeah, I don't know that I felt I was expected to. And I only knew what I'd been modeled.
Mhm.
So because that behavior had been modeled for me, I was like, well, this is how you're supposed to do it.
Right.
We do it this way. This month, And so that's what I did. What about you?
Yeah, I think I had my first baby at 25 and then at 30, and like you, I loved being a mom. I loved that
Mm-hmm.
time. I was in a job with my when I was pregnant with my second daughter, and I lost my job. And that was the company had restructured, and I never thought I would be on the chopping block. And being getting that phone call and realizing I am 5 months pregnant and I don't have a job.
Mm-hmm.
What is happening? What is going to happen? I went on as many um, interviews as I could, in the next few months. And clearly, the bigger my belly got, the faster the door shut behind
Mm-hmm.
me. That was I think that was the first real time I experienced um, what that felt like to be judged or be less than, or you can't do what someone else can do because of your condition, or
Mm-hmm.
all of those terrible discriminatory things. And um, at that time, I made a very strong decision that I had to stay home. Like at that point, it was like, okay, we'll eat rice and beans and we will live on a very humble income,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll be fine. And that was one of the scariest things to do. But at that time, it was the right thing to do. And I
Right.
look back at that, and I almost feel like, as hard as it was a very pivotal moment for me. And accepting that place in my life. And here I am. I mean, I chose to be a mother. I was not forced into this,
Mm-hmm.
right? And, but the life I had planned and the life I thought was going to be
Yeah.
my life at 30, I was going to be doing this and this. And no, I
Mm-hmm.
was at home with a newborn and a little boy entering kindergarten.
Ugh.
And so, looking back at that time, it was God's gift, really. I mean, that was one of the most beautiful times of my life. And I feel blessed beyond measure to have been able to be at home. And it was almost like God saying, slow it down,
Mm-hmm.
sister. Like, you can't do it all, whether you think you can or
Whether
not,
you've been
right?
told to do it
Yeah,
all, you're yep.
maybe you shouldn't do it
Mm-hmm.
all. And so that was a time leaning in. And I remember also my son starting kindergarten, and he had been at pre-K in that same school, so I did know some of the families. But I also felt um like, who am I in this group of
Right.
moms? Some of the moms were stay-at-home moms and
Mm-hmm.
had very, very different lives than I had. And it was in some cases it was hard to find
Fit
my
in.
groove, and who were my mommy friends, and were my mommy friends the same friends that my son was befriending? Not always.
Mm-hmm.
And who am I? Who I can just remember thinking that question over and over again, like, who am I now?
Right.
Who am I now? I knew who I was before this, and now this is all new. But I also think that that's okay, right? Like, if we keep asking ourselves, and not that we have to reinvent ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
but I think if we offer ourselves room to grow and reassess, I don't want to overuse the word pivot, but it just
It kind of
really
sticks right
feels
now.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, how, like, at that time, I'm sure you had differing goals, but don't you think sometimes,
Mm.
like, as you pivot and you're redirected, you have new goals, sometimes that offers really a new fresh look at things.
I think so. So I would say I did not settle into motherhood well. And I can say that freely now, looking back on it with 5 years of therapy under my belt, that I didn't settle into motherhood well. I was a good mom, and I will hold to that my children are good people, and that is in part because I was a good mom. But like I railed against it. I wasn't supposed to be able to have children.
Oh, wow.
And in fact, 3 months before I found out I was pregnant with Xander, my first, I had been told with no uncertain terms that you will not be able to ever get pregnant on your own.
Oh, my.
Mexico and tequila said differently.
I mean,
I'm just saying,
sometimes.
like, but I was an army chick. Like, I was a warrior woman, and I had really fully embraced this idea that Charlie and I were gonna, he was gonna be my army spouse, and we were gonna travel the world and experience all the things. And I had come to terms with the fact that I couldn't have children, and so we're just gonna travel and be the cool aunt and uncle. I had sisters, and that was life. That was what it was going to be.
How did Charlie accept that news, if I can interrupt that?
I think at the time, we fully embraced that.
Awesome. So as a couple, you were really able to unite together. And
yeah. And I think that a lot of that came out of, we had been on this like really difficult journey where I'd had a traumatic brain injury, and he nursed me back to health.
Oh, wow.
And then we decided, and that, when I got better, that we wanted to increase our family, and then that got stripped away. So we had been through these really difficult trials early on in our marriage, so that it was just going to be he and I. That worked.
We can do this.
And I was okay. And my favorite aunt and uncle, they were childless, world traveling vagabonds, and so I was like, we're going to be Aunt Betty and Uncle Mike. We're just going to do that. That's how we're going to do. And God had other plans.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
As he usually does.
As he does. As you do. But I really railed against that when I became a mother. And I really wanted to like be something more. Right. And so I never settled into that space. And I kind of regret that in some ways, because I don't feel like I fully embraced the role ever. But it is what paved the way for so many other cool things that I did. Yeah. But there were a ton of pivots in that time period, for sure. And I think being comfortable in the pivot is a gift. And it's helped me to see like this, like now that I'm middle-aged, and there are lots of pivots now, right? Because ain't nothing working the way it used to work. The knees don't work the way, the eyes, like nothing works the way, the hair dye doesn't work the same way. Like nothing works the way it used to work. And so now being comfortable with like, it is what it is. It's fine. This is where we're at now. It's its own pivot.
It is its own pivot.
And it's different.
I want to go back to something you just said about motherhood, and you said something so real and so honest that I think if everyone is honest, we probably have all thought, is this enough? Is this, I thought I was going to be more than this. Right. I thought there was more. Am I enough? Is this enough? I want to be more than a mom. I need more in my life. We're not told it's okay to have that thought.
Right.
Like,
right.
I mean, we're clearly made to procreate. So that is deeply in our DNA that this is what we're here for. And if we have struggles with that, there's not a lot of safe space to have that.
Yeah. And especially no shade to the church, but the church doesn't help that.
Yeah.
In fact,
no, the nuclear biological family.
It creates that. It even like doubles down on that. And I had the odd not singular, but I had an interesting experience in that I wasn't of the church. I was Wiccan before I became pregnant with my son. So it was a very different spirituality.
Conversation.
Yeah, that's a different podcast altogether. But so I wasn't in the church. And then when I got pregnant, I was suddenly looking for something that I could raise my children in that would give them a space to become whole adults. And the Southern Baptist Church welcomed us with open arms. And so it was a very different, obviously, like it's a massive pendulum swing from one to the other. Both groups would probably hate that I say this out loud. It wasn't as different as everyone says it is. There's a lot of similarities there, but like entering into that as a new mother with all of the coming from like this warrior mindset, and I was the army chick and I was so cool because I was an army chick, and then into like motherhood and being soft and feminine and submissive and all the things that the church says that you should be as a woman.
Couldn't feel
it
like...
was a lot. And so there was a space where I was just like, is this all I have? Wait, hold on. But for me, this is it now? Okay. And I do think that as Gen Xers, we were at the fore raised during the time when the women's lib movement was coming up and feminism was kind of a thing, and women were going to work and starting their careers, and like there was so much of that was just impressed upon me. It felt wrong to say, no, I'm staying home with the kids, right? And so that there was a lot at play there, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's, while each of us have our very own experience, I think a lot of women struggle back and forth with both of those things, because too, when you are a young mom or have young children at home, as we are supposed to be present in each moment, your life doesn't feel like it's ever going to be anything else. Right? I mean, how many days are you like, if I have eggs smashed on my shirt or poop or puke, like, can I just not have all of these things happen, right? Like in just a 24-hour period.
Right.
It's hard sometimes to think outside that this is just really a blip on the map. It feels so permanent at the time. And now at our age, looking back, oh my God, did it go fast?
I went really fast. And, I would get so angry at all the people that were like, because all the women that were older were like, don't blink, it goes by so fast. And I'm like, I puke down this side and poop down this side. And I'm like, I want to blink. Yeah. Please let me blink. I need to take a nap. Yeah. Like, I think that it's, and in the moment, you can't hear that, right? Like, like all of the like Kleenex commercials and the diaper commercials, you look back and you're like, oh gosh, I really did love that time. Yeah. And now, like, and then entering into this time, you still have a kid at home, but like you've also launched a couple, right? Yeah. One, right? And I think looking back now, like the thing about middle age is the question of, I have spent a majority of my life now, 22 years, as mom. And now I don't have the kids to carry around with me. Like, like I'm not mom anymore. Like, which is not exactly true. That's kind of like a simplification of what happens. But ultimately, like, what do you do when they're out of the house now? And now you're not having to make scrambled eggs. I can fry the eggs. Yeah. I can do a frog in the hole, which is, by the way I like eggs is frog in the hole. That's the best way.
Is that in bread? No, that might be more
cut out the little,
yes.
And like the best way to do that is to frog in the hole, little fried bologna on top. But the old cholesterol, she don't like that so much. So,
I mean, I feel like bologna is like a dirty 4-letter word.
It's so bad,
right?
I know, but it's so delicious, y'all. It's just so good.
There's a little bar in the back corner of nowhere from south of where I'm from, and I mean, if you don't have a bottle of beer and a fried bologna sandwich in your hand, something is wrong. Right? Or one of our favorite places to go in Nashville. you can buy boots and a fried bologna sandwich. So
That's
it's
like
a
the-
real thing.
That's like the perfect place.
Right?
I think it's great.
Yes. And listen to good honky tonk music.
Country music.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I haven't thought about a fried bologna sandwich in a long time.
I know now you're everybody's mouth's starting to water. Fried bologna.
Oh.
Yeah.
So when we, like you mentioned, like launching kids and finding that you're not as needed as you once were in one way or another.
Had me in the heart.
Right? So we have all these feelings of, God, can we just, as much as we love all of our family and our beautiful life, sometimes we just need time and space for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then when that time and space comes, you're like, what the hell am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
now?
What do I do
No,
now?
wait a second. I have all these things.
Who is the self that I'm supposed to be doing things for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how has that transition and how has that gone good, bad, ugly, and reinventing maybe like time and space for your husband and you, like reconnecting?
Yeah, I will say that I highly recommend any woman who has her, once you have your first hot flash, you should be issued a therapist. Right there.
Right there.
Like,
yes, I love it.
Yeah.
Next
Hey,
steps.
Congress.
Find one.
That's the new thing. Like women, perimenopause, therapist. I think that is a really, really important piece.
Like I have an image.
Right? Like you're standing in line, you're like,
in the book of life, this is what comes next.
They just issue one, right? Here's your therapist.
Yeah.
I do think that has been integral in my journey to accepting this whole piece of it. I don't know what I would have done without my therapist. I think I might have gone a little bit madder than I did.
Yeah.
And there's a crazy time in there when you're like, who the hell is the woman staring back at me in the mirror? Because like there is so much stuff that gets broken there.
Yeah.
Like you don't look the same. So there's that. And then also like you're like, I don't know what to do. Like I didn't have to wake anybody up this morning. I didn't have to make sure someone took a shower this morning. I didn't have to pack a lunch. Now what do I do with my days?
Yeah.
Right? Fortunately for me, I had a job at that point and had unfortunately, I had something to throw myself into.
Yes.
That wasn't really not recommended. 100% not healthy way to do things.
Starting a business, you mean? Or multiple businesses?
Starting a business in menopause is not the way. Or maybe it is the way. My business partner just walked in and she's like, what? But for why?
Yeah.
Maybe it is the way. I don't know. So in some ways, I guess I gave birth to a new baby.
Yes. That's a great way to think about it.
But I think for me, it was a lot of introspection. It was a lot of just giving myself grace to step back. And when I felt like, I think I spent so much of my life going through life sort of dissociated from my own feelings and my own body that I didn't know when that angst was starting to rise. Do you know this feeling of like, I don't know why I have the ick about this, but I do. I don't like it. I'm not happy about it. And it's just like a simmering sort of dissatisfaction with everything.
Yeah.
And if you allow that to like boil over, it becomes resentment, and that is not good. But through therapy, I was able to like start to recognize that when I started to get that simmering feeling, it was really my body, my brain, my soul telling me, you're out of alignment with life. Like with what you're not lined up with your values. And that's why this dissatisfaction is here. So having a space to kind of recognize that and like step back and go, okay, what is this about? Yeah. All right, hold on. And kind of interrogating those emotions. And rather than shove, gotta do all the things, mop the floor, clean the house, get the kids off, like, and I did that through most of my motherhood. Like pushed all those feelings down, which ended up disconnecting me from them. And now I'm more able to take a step back and go, okay, wait, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling that? What's out of alignment? It brings along, right? Very close to the back end of that is, what are my values anyway? Because maybe I got out of touch with them.
Sure.
Like, so alignment's a whole ass question.
And maybe they
itself.
changed.
They do.
Right?
They morph as you get older.
Yeah.
For Charlie and I, there was this pivotal moment. I had brain surgery in 2020. Everybody everybody else had to wear a mask because of COVID. I had to wear a mask because I literally had a hole in my brain and could get meningitis at any moment.
Good God.
There was this whole thing that happened then. And I laid on my back for almost a whole year. And finally, when I had surgery in December of 2020 and they took the fat from my belly that I had been storing up.
So graciously for them.
Sowing that fat for so long, they harvested it. But they took it and made a patch for my brain, right?
Really?
Yeah, fascinating, eh?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, whole nother conversation.
That's a whole nother conversation. So, but it was an almost instant relief of the pain that I had been in for a year. Literally had brain surgery, felt better coming out of anesthesia than I had for a whole year. And laying there, I said something to Charlie that changed everything for us. And I said, I'm tired of waiting. Someday maybe never comes. And he was like, tell me what that means. And I was like, and specifically for me, it was around, we had been saying I wanted to be out in the outdoors. I wanted to spend time in the outdoors. I wanted to go hiking. I wanted to cultivate this habit of exercise in the outdoors. It was something we never really could do with our kids for a multitude of reasons, mostly because we were either running to dance competition or some robotics. Like, we were busy.
Yeah.
As you do.
Yeah.
But when I started thinking about that, after we kind of had some time to start thinking about it, I was like, well, I'm not in shape. I've gained a lot of weight. I'm not in good shape. I'll go to the gym, get in good shape. Someday maybe we'll hike. Yeah. Someday maybe we'll do this. Someday maybe. And when I woke up from that surgery, I just said, no. Someday maybe will never come. We have to do it.
Wow. And
so I was cleared 6 weeks later for physical activity, and we went on our first hike. And it was short, wasn't that big of a deal. It was like, I about died. It was less than a mile, and I thought I was going to die.
You're like, wait a second.
Never mind. I don't really like this. There's bugs. I'm not really sure.
I should have researched this better. Right? Wait a second.
But where that took me and Charlie and I don't know, we found each other on the hiking trail because it's this time when there's not anything else. We don't take music. It's actually a thing. We don't take a speaker. Yeah. We just go. It's just us and the sounds of nature. And
it's grounding.
It's physically grounded. Yes. Mentally, it forces me to know where my feet are. And that's a big thing for me. Like, when I get anxious or whatever, I start with where are my feet, right? And so hiking is just a place where we can find each other again. Yeah. We write the number of books we have written on hikes that will never actually be written. But we enjoy each other so much on the hiking trail. And that created the space for us to be together. And it is something that we never really did with our kids. So it's something that's very singularly ours. Yeah. And I wouldn't trade it for the world.
That's beautiful. Mm-hmm. That's a beautiful story. I think sometimes we let our fear take over about what that next step is and what the next step in life is. And we're so worried about future instead of just being in the now. And then knowing that sometimes you can't pre-plan things, like, right? Like that would have never been something that you would have planned previously,
right?
Especially coming from something so traumatic as a brain surgery, nonetheless.
Right.
So whether it's God's plan or it's always God's plan, we just, catch up.
Sometimes
to it,
we catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that I will say there is something that happens to me on the trail that's really interesting, and I think it has something to do with being older. I was always an athlete. So like I never worried about my body in space and time. Like I never worried about what my body could always do. The thing that I asked it to do. And even now, slightly overweight, a lot, little knee injury, all the things, right? Even now, my body still can do most of the things I ask it to do, even though it yells at me a lot more about it. It does tell me that I shouldn't have tried that. But one of the things I think that was really hard for me to get over, because Charlie is a mountain goat. He grew up on a mountain. He I don't even know, I would have like these like super hiking boots with really grippy treads. Yeah. Charlie's in like sandals and he's like climbing up
scaling the mountain.
Yes. And I'm always like,
how is this possible?
And one of the things that was always a challenge for me, a lot of the trails that we go on here in Arkansas, they have water crossings where you have to cross across, pick your way across little stones in the water or whatever to try to stay dry. And why that terrifies me, I don't know. Like why I don't just like trudge across the water and just.
Well, maybe because we were always told they're covered in moss and you're going to slip and fall.
You're going to die.
Maybe.
Yeah. So like one of the things that I find on the trail, and I think it's why I prescribe it to all women of my age. You got to go hiking, right? Like I'm that person now.
Good.
Is balance is an issue now. The older I've gotten, maybe part of that's brain surgery stuff, but also the older I've gotten, the less sure of my feet I am. I also know that it takes me a lot longer to heal from an injury than it ever did before. So, that's a whole thing.
Yeah.
So I'm so much more careful with my body than I used to be. And that is both frustrating and just something you have to accept. Yeah. But every time I take a step that's a little further than the last one, I'm teaching myself that I can trust my body still.
Yes.
And so I think it's really important.
And building confidence and that you can still do anything you want to do.
I want to do.
Right. Yeah. Try new things.
Maybe not climb a mountain. I'm not super, although I have, but I don't know that I would do it again.
I've climbed a couple and it is not easy.
It is not.
No.
It's not a thing. No. I'm like, yeah, I'm cool here. I'm good. You can go. I'll watch you. Pictures. I'll take pictures.
Yeah. I have a friend that I used to work with, and on his 40th birthday, he and his group of friends, they planned this for forever. They climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. Wow. And he was like the training, like they would go to Denver, they're from Dallas. They would go to Denver and all these places just for the weekend to hike their ass off to kill themselves just to get ready for this. And when he, so afterwards, and they made it to the summit at sunrise and the whole thing, he's like, the hardest part was coming down the mountain. He's like, no one really tells you, like, that's the hardest part. And, he's like a man's man, and he's like crying. Like, my knees were done. My body was done. Like, I thought summiting the mountain was going to be the hardest. No, it was coming back down. Isn't that
life, though?
Right?
That's a beautiful picture. So, 100% accurate, can corroborate that story that people train for the climb and they don't train for the decline.
Yeah.
2, isn't that a great picture of life? We train for the climb and we don't train for the decline. And I think like if there's anything you should learn about this podcast, it should be that, dude, train for the decline. Like the downhill slope, that's kind of where it's at.
I mean, to go physical, to go there, and maybe I'm just more aware, but if I don't hear it 5 times a day about lifting weights, some sort of strength resistance, because that's the only thing that's going to protect our bones and balance. And so, yes, that is definitely reframing what that actually means. But
I have a friend who he teaches jujitsu, right? Like that's what he teaches, like in his real life or whatever. Once a quarter, he teaches a fall class to seniors, and he literally like brings them into the dojo and he pushes them down for 3 hours. Like he teaches them how to fall. He teaches them how not to break things. He teaches them how to get up from the fall.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Dude, that is freaking brilliant. Like that is like the best thing you could possibly do. Like
wonderful.
Train for the decline. Maybe that's a whole thing.
Decline with grace.
Noted for the social media post. Yeah, got it. Yeah.
Okay, so then in this whole smack you in the face with middle age, here we are. Is there anything that has been harder than you thought? That's whether it's emotionally, physically, mentally, like
the insomnia is harder than I thought.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking from a physical perspective, I just don't sleep as well. And I also don't run as well on less sleep as I did in my 20s.
Yeah.
So, like, I think that that's one of the things that's really difficult. Like, I think the thing that's been so hard for me, I've come to emotionally, I've like come into myself. Like, I'm like, ha, I am here. See me in my Doc Martens, which, by the way, I could never afford as a young woman. And, like, you better believe as soon as I could afford some, I have a whole wardrobe.
Yes.
Right? But, like, see me in my this is me. This is my style. This is how I show up. I've very much stepped into that. Then there is actually this, like, physical part of aging that sucks.
Yeah.
So bad. And I don't know if you have experienced this or not, but like, let's be real here. Ain't no doctor out there that know what happened to women's bodies. Yep. We don't know what's going on in here. We don't know how to fix it. We got a lot of like ideas about how to fix it. And I've tried 1,001 of them, and 1,001 of them haven't really worked. Yeah. So like, I think that's the hardest part, is like coming into this space where you hear about it all the time. You hear about all the hot flashes and all the like mood swings and all the things that are going to happen to your body. And then they start happening and you kind of know there's not a solve for it. Yeah. Like you just got to suffer through. That part has sucked.
Yeah. So that is actually a statement that I have read so much about, that people, ladies, have been told this lie, basically, right? That this is what it is. So
just deal with it.
Just deal with it. Suffer. Yeah. If your grandma did this, this is how her body was, then your mama, then you, like, this is what it is. And I don't know. I kind of want to just say F that. Like, we have to take it just like we did our own life and say, okay, no, I'm not my grandma. Even though, you know, one second, thinking about my age now, and that was her age and she looked 100. Right? You think, holy.
I had this conversation with my hairstylist the other day that like, 70 is a new 50. Yeah. Like it really, like I look at pictures of myself compared to my grandmother and I'm like at this age and I'm like, I mean, people tell me I don't look 50 all the time and I love that. You can keep telling me. But like, I'm like, but I kind of don't.
Yeah, no, you don't. And no, you
No,
don't.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, just keep thinking.
But it's funny because you think about, our grandmothers were beautiful, right?
Mhm.
All in their own right and beautiful women. I'm not sure either one of mine looked different my entire life. They
Right.
looked 100 when I was 5 and, 15 or whatever.
100%, yep.
Their hair looked the same outfit, the same makeup, like everything. But this whole idea that we have to suffer through it is, I call bullshit. I'm like,
I stand with you.
I
It's
think
bullshit.
it is. I'm gonna let's go HRT because this is a whole conversation that I think is really becoming a new open for conversation that a lot of people aren't talking about. And funny story, I had gone to the doctor and had, struggling with things, and this doctor was like, well, I could put you on testosterone. And I mean, you might have to deal with like pimples and you might get like hair on your chin. This is the option.
This is my choice.
Are you kidding me?
Thanks.
This is the option.
I'll pass.
Here, my
Thank you very
husband,
much.
pluck that hair off my chin.
Yeah, right.
No thanks. We already have hair growing in
All
things
kinds of
and
places.
and moles and no. But I finally went to the doctor and had, after going to a couple of different doctors and talking about, all of these symptoms. And so learning a little bit more about the difference between bioidentical hormones and not, and how our grandmother's progesterone or Primpro,
Right.
that was bad,
Right.
Very, very bad. And so today, talking to my doctor, and I started hormone replacement therapy, scared, very scared. My grandmother had a double mastectomy in her late 40s, my same age now, and then died at 52. Breast cancer runs in my family, but I felt like I had to have relief. I had to become a normal person again. And so I had been on it maybe 2 or 3 months, and a close friend of mine had announced to my husband and I that she had breast cancer. And I laid there that night and I'm talking to my husband and I'm like, I can't do it. I'm not doing this. Like, I have to get off of it. And that just scared me to death. So fast forward over a year later, and our dear friend is, she battled with grace and beauty, and she is cancer-free today.
That's
Thank
awesome.
God Almighty. But it has started, like, the conversation never left, right? Like, okay, now here we still have all these symptoms, and we shouldn't be scared to do this because of what some studies have said or not said, or they only studied a subgroup of women that doesn't really represent all women. And so I recently went back to the doctor and went back on the HRT, and I think it was only, I don't even think it was a month in, and my husband says to me in the kitchen one day, did you start taking that medicine? Why you say that?
Yeah.
It's different.
Is that a good difference?
It's a very good different.
Okay, just checking.
It's a good different. And and so when we love our husbands more than anything on the planet, and we know deep inside us, we're all over the place some days. We're up and down and all around. I don't need him to say, it's a bad day today.
Have you taken your hormones today?
Yes.
That's the one that'll get you.
Have you taken yes.
Did you take your meds today?
But I have noticed, I truly feel like today, knowing a lot more about it, and that it is so much safer today, right? Clearly, it's a doctor, very personal conversation with your doctor, but for me in my life, it has been a game changer. And I feel like a normal person. I don't feel like I have all of this anxiety built up or just this hate everybody, get out of my face, I hate you feeling.
Yeah.
That's not fair.
And I think it's so, I mean, okay. So the word hysteria comes from the Greek word for uterus, like hysterectomy, hysteria, all of those. Like the word hysteria was meant to talk about women when they were on their period in the time when people didn't understand what was happening, right? And as much as I think that was the wrong answer, they did what they knew when they knew it.
Yeah.
It is true that our hormones, as women, our hormones don't just regulate our moods or our periods or our ability to have children. They regulate literally everything in our bodies, including, by the way, our ability to metabolize cholesterol. Like there are lots of studies right now that show that women who have gone through perimenopause and menopause, who are not on hormone replacement therapy, as their estrogen levels go down, their cholesterol goes up, and it is not controlled with statins. So like that to me is like, hey, y'all, can we do something here? Yeah. Like that's a whole thing. We should be doing something. Yeah. I have been on hormone replacement therapy. I had a hysterectomy when I was 30. Oh, so wow. I've been on hormone replacement therapy for a hot minute. Yeah. And I just remember when I first had my hysterectomy, he was like, 5 years, we'll keep you on it. 5 years, we'll wean you off. Then you'll be a golden girl, right? Everything will be fine. Because like, that's the misnomer, is that once you go through menopause, like all this crap settles.
Let's be honest.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
Hey, like there's no like that light at the end of the tunnel of menopause is a train. Yeah. It does not, like, it doesn't stop. And I think that's the big like misnomer is like, well, if I just make it through if I just gut through menopause, when I get to the other side, my hormones settle and I'll be okay. No, your hormones bottom out and everything stops working right. Yeah. And I think that is, it is a real issue. Like, and I'm glad that people are starting to like stand up and say it is not okay that we have told all the old ladies that that's just being an old lady and you should just deal with it. Yeah. Yeah. No. Yay for you. You can't have kids anymore. Fun times. Like that's what we're told. And even for me, like when granted, there's a lot of things that happened. It was during COVID, so there was a lot of weird stuff that was happening with my brain thing. But when I went to the doctor, the first time I went to the doctor, she looked at me and said, well, you know how when women get older, you know how your granny always carries around a tissue? Because her nose is running all the time. That's what this is. It's called vasomotor rhinitis. And she's like, you're just getting older. You're just going to have to carry a tissue. That's, old women, their noses leak. And I'm like, but not this way. This is not a runny nose, yo. And she's like, no, that's just different. Getting older. And I'm like,
I'm trying to tell you, woman.
Yeah, this is exactly it. But how many conversations have we had with our doctors that have ended with the deep sigh, the disappointment, the walking out and saying, well, what am I going to do? If the doctor doesn't prescribe it, I guess I don't get it. Right. And it gets really exhausting trying to find a doctor that does. Like there's the like black market gynecologist that, all of your friends are seeing that you're like, who are you seeing? And they're like, don't tell anyone because they might not take new patients, but here they are. Yeah. Right. Like that's terrible that we have to be that way.
Yeah. It's
just
totally
to find
true.
The right thing, like the right treatment for us.
I know. I have struggled to find, newsflash, I changed doctors right after that conversation.
Right.
But I did start seeing a woman, which is kind of crazy too, that I had never seen a woman before. Right. And now I'm thinking, why would you not try to see a woman if you can't? Who knows?
But you got to see one that's there. The woman doctors that I've seen that have been, no shade to female doctors. I think they're great. Good on you. My daughter's going to be one, right?
Yeah.
Like, but the youngins that come right out of college and they just, and I hate that I have become my mother then and have started walking in doctor's office going, oh, there's such a baby, right? Like that. What, did you just graduate? They're like 35 and
Right.
not, right? But I think in order to understand it, you almost have to go through it.
Yeah. Oh, I think so too. 100%. I mean, just knowing and looking at the women in our lives that have gone through some of these things, I can remember being a younger girl thinking, you're exaggerating this. It can't be that bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, I had a hot flash the other day.
No. No, that's not how it works.
You didn't. Did you sweat through your clothing? No. Then you didn't have a hot flash. Sorry.
Or wake up in the middle of the night and you have to turn the fan on and your husband is like, I'm freezing. What is happening right now?
No, you haven't had one yet.
Yeah.
No.
Right. Okay. So when we find, I want to just kind of switch gears here a little bit.
Okay.
As we grow and as we've talked about how we pivot, we've learned to change and create parts of our life that are new and different as we grow and experience and gain knowledge, right? I mean, I know that you are, what did you call yourself? A certificate something?
I am chronically certified.
Yes, chronically certified. I love it so much. So in a polite way, you're a consummate learner, right?
Yes. I like that way. I'll take that way. Mm-hmm.
Which is good, right? You want to always be looking for something new to grow and learn and do. And that makes us better. It opens our minds and our hearts to being available to things we may not have been available for.
I love that frame of it. I will accept. I receive your frame.
Yes. I'll talk to Charlie about that too. Yes.
I'm definitely multi-passionate. Yes.
Multi-passionate.
Yes.
I like that too. So talk to me about just what it means when something no longer serves you, right? Like I feel like middle age is kind of that point where there's been times in our lives where there's been a lot of things, situations, or people that no longer serve us. So how do you make that determination and lean into it with confidence?
That's a really, really great and tough question. I think, and I do think that there is a place like in middle, it goes back to that, like, I just don't give a shit anymore. Like that moment of, I don't know, I woke up one morning and I realized, well, this is who I am and who I am is enough. Like, and I never thought of that, like that I was enough. Right.
Yeah.
And so I accepted a lot of relationships, a lot of interactions, a lot of jobs that put me in a position where I couldn't ever be enough. Like I couldn't ever achieve what I needed, what their bar, right? And so it was kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. I find that it is especially true with family relationships, are maybe some of the most difficult to kind of slough off and not fully walk away, but move away from things that don't really serve you anymore. And so for me, that has been a stepwise process. It takes a ton of self-reflection and like just introspection and sitting down and going, it goes back to that feeling of angst. Like I now trust that when I start to feel that there's there's this dissonance in my body that when I start to feel that, that means that I'm not like this anymore. I'm not aligned. Something's like trying to fit where it's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I've definitely found that, like, there are a few family relationships that I have chosen not to maintain because they don't really serve me. And there's a piece of me that has to let go of how that feels selfish.
Yeah.
It feels selfish to say it doesn't serve me, so I'm walking away from it. But the real truth in that is it not only didn't serve me, it was out of alignment with my values, but it was doing damage to me over the long haul. And so most of the places where I've walked away from things, jobs, relationships, even to a certain extent, certain relationships that I had inside the church or with the church in general, those types of things I've moved away from in search of a healthier relationship with myself.
Yeah.
And in some ways with God, like just a healthier relationship in general with who I am and how I show up in the world.
Yeah. I think that's beautiful. And we should always feel confident and know that we have the right to make that decision for ourselves and our life. And it is not anyone else's choice to make that for us.
Right.
And we are the ones that might allow someone to infiltrate those feelings and make us feel like, oh, well, because this person is your blank, you need to really stay connected to that person.
Right.
But exactly to your point, if there is damage, and that's subjective, right? And it was whatever is most healthy for you. And deep down in your gut, if you know your values and you know that this is not a safe place or it doesn't feel good, this is not making you a better person, then there's definitely self-reflection and room to start to think about what does this look like without this person in my life or as close in my life.
Right.
You can not live every day with a person and not there isn't mean that you have ill will toward them or that there has to be animosity. That's not what this is, right? That's not saying I'm choosing to have distance in this relationship to protect myself, right? That's something you would more or less say to yourself.
Right.
But there's nothing wrong with that and to feel confident in that.
Yeah. Charlie has this view of relationships. He calls them circles. They're Charlie's circles. And there's the inner circle, and then there's the acquaintance circle, so the colleague acquaintance circle, and then there's the we know each other circle, right? Maybe LinkedIn people or whatnot. We know each other. And then there's outside the circle, right? And Charlie gives you one chance. If you get put outside the circle, you are always and forever outside the circle. And he will freely say, you can have a redemption arc. I don't have to bear witness to it.
Wow.
And that to me is like, I mean, talk about lessons that I learned late in life. I'm like, what? I mean, you mean if they change, I don't have to like just bring them back into the inner circle?
Yeah.
Nope.
No.
You are worthy of a redemption arc.
Yeah.
God may give you a second chance. I don't have to. And I'm just like, holy smokes, this rocks my world. But, and he always says, and it always blows my mind, you know, we think that healthy means lots of healthy relationships. Jesus maintained 12.
Right.
Like the guy had 12. And really, those were these. They were not inner circle. Inner circle was 3, right? Like, so like, you know, like, I think it's very important for us to keep in mind for ourselves that there's not a number that we have to reach. Like, there's not a grade card that says what is healthy and what's not. And I've just learned that if you are not my people,
Yep.
If I can't, there was this time when I was like, I love my husband because I can take every mask off. I can be fully myself. I can be all of Cari, and he loves me for that. Not only does he not judge me, but he loves that part of me.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that a thing that I only can show to my husband?
Right.
Like, why is the only relationship in my life where I can be fully myself the single person, the guy that wakes up in the bed next to me? Like,
Mm-hmm.
which is great that I feel that way for my husband, but like, it really came down to, if I can't be myself fully with you and you respect that, you don't have to love all the things about me.
Sure.
But if you don't respect that, then it's okay. You're just not me, my
Right.
person. There's 700 billion other people out
Yeah.
there. So I live by Charlie Circle rules. I'm still learning the out of the circle, stay out of the circle. You don't have to ever let them back in. I'm learning that one.
Well, first, I mean,
It's not necessarily a bad thing, but like, I've been burned more than once by the same person because of that.
Yeah.
But like, and then I think the biggest lesson I've learned over the last couple of years is, if I'm not your gal, I'm just not your gal. Like,
And that's okay.
and that's okay.
Yeah.
No judgment on you, no judgment on me.
And I think there's a seasonality in life too, that you can be very close to someone for a very long time, and you naturally have different things happening in your life and you grow apart.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. You might find yourself back in each other's circle for whatever reason, right? The world or life or God brings you back in connection or closer connection with people sometimes. But sometimes, whether it's friends or family, it's some people have to go so new people can come in.
Yeah.
Also, to your point, you can't maintain a ton of very healthy relationships. You don't have that much to give, right? We don't. We are already feeling like we have to give to God knows all the things. So, well, I love that. I think sometimes we need to hear that from our friends, that it's okay to have that healthy boundary and not be the stage 5 clinger to some relationships that clearly have seen better days,
to move on.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. All right. So wrapping up, Cari, I just I think I have a really like a parting question that I would love to ask you.
I'm ready.
All right.
Okay.
Put your thinking cap on.
Uh-oh.
So if you really could sit down and have a conversation with your 20-year-old self, what would be a couple of things that you would want her to know?
The guy in the red sneakers is your guy. A funny story. Charlie always wore red Chuck Taylors. He still, when we're out just playing, wears red Chuck Taylors. Those were his signature shoes. So when I met him, he was wearing red Chuck Taylors. So
did it weird you out? Was that like on campus, right?
Yeah, well,
okay.
I was dating his best friend when I met him. So like, I met him at a party, blah blah blah. But I could have been spared a lot of heartache if I had just gone out with the guy in the red shoes first.
Yeah.
So one, he's your guy. But in all seriousness, I think, gosh, what would I tell her? I think I would tell her, and this is apt because my daughter's this age, right? I think I would tell her that love comes when you're not looking for it. And usually when you're in the healthiest you can be at that stage of your life emotionally. So I think that's one of the things that I want my daughter to know, is that like when you are searching for someone to fill all the broken parts of you, those relationships are nearly always, without a lot of help and therapy, gonna be damaging in some way, because people aren't made to feel the broken parts of you, for one. But like, if that's what you're looking for in the other, then you're looking for the wrong thing. I think that would be the thing that I would tell 20-year-old Cari now. And
Beautiful.
I would tell her to take care of her body, because it train for the decline, girl. Train for the decline.
That is new.
Right?
I'm never letting that one go.
That one's like, that's what I would tell her. Yeah.
Awesome. Cari, thank you so much for the time today. You are an absolute delight, and I am lucky to call you friend.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.